Hi and welcome everyone to this webinar. This webinar is about being enough and seeing beyond the struggle. And my name is Cecilia Hector and I come from Sweden. And I have this webinar together with Steve Adar from Scotland. And we wanted to start this webinar little softly with some minutes, with quiet. So we just take a rest now and just take a deep breath and just sit here together in silence. Yeah. It's nice to come back to settle the busy thinking and come back to the speed of life a little. This is my first webinar. Steve, you have been in many webinars, but I haven't. So I had a little struggle, and but I do know that it's my thinking, my busy thinking. So if I can just take this moment and just sit with it, it's easier to do it because I want to. So I feel happy to have this webinar today with all of you, and I'm so happy that you spend your time together with us and together with yourself, because that's what you do. You spend some time taking care of you, so you can be able to connect with you and your heart. Yeah. Steve.
Thank you for that lovely welcome. I'm always curious how we start. Cecilia and I had a check-in this morning just to, we've done recordings. Cecilia has a YouTube channel with many different recordings, and I'm on there a few times, but this is the first time that we've gone live and invited people to join us. So we just wanted to check in. One of the things we were laughing about was like, we could decide now what we're going to talk about when we go live, but we'll probably not talk about that anyway. And that's really, I think, how life shows itself up, is that we've called this being enough. And for me, that starts looking at what we call the inside out understanding of life. So in our human experience, as trainers, we would bullet point the times of when we would meet and how long we would speak for and what we would do and so on. And we even had the question this morning, like, do we speak each for 10 minutes each and then throw it open, or do we just have a conversation, or what do we do? And it's like, let's just show up and just see. How many times do we gift ourselves in life that opportunity of just showing up, regardless of what's going on up here, regardless of what thinking we have, and we just show up and we just be in the experience. And what that begins to do, like when we look at this understanding of being enough, it's beginning to see that what we're looking for is already inside of us. So I bring the word like happiness, and that's something that I think in our small brain, that we're always constantly, how can I be happy? What do I need to do to be happy? But for this conversation that we're going to be having here, happiness is alive inside of you. Peace of mind is alive inside of you. And when we innocently look outside of ourselves to people, events for happiness, with the misunderstanding that life is outside. But in this state of happiness and peace of mind, we begin to understand for ourselves that you are enough. It's, I guess globally, but here in the UK, it's, well, in England, because it's different in Scotland timings, the school holidays, but it's, the children go back to school next week. And there's lots of rushing around, and people get the children ready to go back to school. And I was just thinking, like, when I was growing up, that, and even like as a child and hearing my parents like, oh, I can't wait to get on holiday just to relax. And I was speaking to some friends who have children, and they said the same. And it was like these whole 2 weeks of the year is pinned on, that's my time to relax. So what happens for the other times that they're not relaxing? And it's, we've kind of programmed ourselves like going on holiday is that opportunity to relax. But what actually happens is that when we're on holiday, we simply forget to overthink. We think it's the environment, we think it's the situation, but we simply forget because maybe our work, if it has been stressful, we leave it behind. Maybe the children are different at that time, or if there is no children, maybe who you're with is different at that time. But we've built our whole psychological understanding is that things and people and places outside of us determine what we think and how we feel. Where for this conversation, Cecilia and I are asking you to just play with the idea that no one has that power over you unless you think they do. So being enough, when you start really understanding that happiness is an inside job, then you start seeing beyond that struggle. You start to see that the struggle is the overthinking. is the misunderstanding of thought. And that perhaps because something happened before in a certain way, we can innocently flip back through consciousness and thought to that experience and feel it as if it's happening right now. But it's only happening right now through our thinking.
I was listening to a webinar last week, and one of the things that they were talking about was the new perfect is to not be perfect. And I just love that, because we always struggling with being perfect, and what's perfect? What's a perfect life, and how are you when you are perfect? It's always someone's opinion, and we think different, and we get the feeling that we are never enough. So when you can see that it's a more an inside job to look inside, and not care so much about showing up perfect all the time. I had to show up today, not perfect. I had to show up with all my nervous feelings about how can I manage this today, this webinar. I've never done it before. How can I do this? But I heard something when I was listening to that webinar, and when they said, I don't need to be perfect, I felt free to try, even if I had thoughts about being nervous. I still show up and try my best to just be me. And that's how I always want to show up, to be me, because I can't be anyone else. Everyone gets their place in life, so I have to be me. And it's something that I have to do again and again and again. And when we do that, we can see that it's not so scary. That we all got this thinking about ourselves to not be enough. I know that everyone goes with that thinking and feels that, and it goes up and down all the time. But when I started to see that I'm carried by life, and I also got wisdom inside of me, I started to trust in that more and more. Otherwise, I shouldn't be here today and doing this. And but I hope everyone is kind and and allow me to show up. Thank you, Maya. Because yeah, why not? But I know we all struggle with this thinking, and it's really hard to have all that inside running around and try to make everyone likes you, and to be enough.
It's so interesting. It's like we set a benchmark of how life should look. So there's a level, and each time that level gets higher and higher. And giving ourselves the permission just to see that we're the one doing that is a game changer. Every experience that we have is self-created. So what we're scared of in that moment perhaps is ourselves. And because we might have a little bit of history of something, it didn't happen in the way that we wanted before, but when we realize that all we ever have is now, then we get to show up as we're showing up. And that's how the principles really allow us to see how we experience life. All we ever have is now. Anything else is just the misunderstanding or trying to regurgitate or reinvent something that happened before. Even at the beginning, when I was speaking about happiness is alive inside of you, it's not even grasping the happiness. It's like, you know, if a butterfly is flying around and you try to hold it, you need to let it free in order to enjoy its beauty. And that's the same as us. When we allow ourselves to float from one experience to the other, then we see that we are actually guided by a divine nature inside of us, which is much more serene than any of the thinking that we can make up ourselves. And that is the nature of who we are. So we don't have to try to make that nature up. We are that nature. And what I heard Cecilia saying then, it's like we define who we are. And it's always interesting, like when you ask people from which country you're from, and what is really exciting is there's maybe 3 or 4 different countries here, but we're all have the same heartbeat. We all do the same thing to ourselves, because that's the human experience. So when we start saying that, well, actually, we're a lot more similar than what we're not, regardless of the lineage and how we look, then we begin to see that as we define ourselves, we're simply just looking in a direction that can only give us the old, unwanted thinking. And it might also give us, you know, I think we spend more time actually in a state of happiness than what we don't. But when we are not in a state of mind that we're happy with, it seems to be amplified. It seems to be even more powerful because we skip through happiness. We don't go back and say, oh, I'm 100% happy. Life is really great. We kind of just, yeah, I'm really good. But when we're not feeling in that state of mind, then we wear it on our body. Our body feels heavy. And then we start to look in that direction. But what we're saying is that when we see that even in that state, you are still enough. And it's about not defining yourself in that state. The moment you start defining, and that's how I think psychology really started as well, is as soon as someone is actually given a mental health diagnosis, then it's okay, that's I know, so I'm not going crazy, it's just there's a fly going around and it's dive bombing my head. So if you just keep on seeing me hitting the top of my head. But that's where I always found interested, that when I'd studied psychology, then it's like we have a series of, if we put it into the understanding we're talking about, a series of thoughts, and it's been given a defining, it's been given a title, and by that title, we keep ourselves prisoner. But it doesn't tell us who you are. It just tells us that there is overthinking going on there. And behind that is still that peace of mind. And you know, the beautiful thing about it is, it's yours. And no one can take that away, not even you. That's the beautiful thing about when you look through the eyes of love and you see that you have been the person that you are looking for, then you start understanding through a feeling that you are enough. And when you're looking for that feeling, look for what you have instead of what you don't have. And you will feel the difference and the quality of the feeling. Look at what you already have instead of what you don't have. As soon as we look at what we don't have, we're in the land of stories. And we've got so good in our psychology of making so many things up and holding ourselves prisoner. Now, the seeing that is beautiful. They actually say, when I think that, this is what happens. When we see that moment for ourselves, this happiness that we were talking about, and please don't get locked into the word of happiness. It's just the word that we're using. You can fit whatever word that you want. But when we see that we have innate qualities inside of us, the moment that we hit this earth, to allow us to grow, to breathe, to understand, to forget, to be present, to not be present, to feel the best thing ever, to not. The ebbing and flowing, I mean, everything, the oceans are breath. Everything has an ebbing and a flowing to it. It has a flow, whether we keep ourselves quite rigid at times as human beings. So what I loved about what Cecilia was sharing was the fact of, despite herself, she showed up anyway. And if we just allow ourselves to do that, we can have any thought and we don't have to take it seriously. And that's what I heard from what Cecilia was saying then. I'm telling myself I'm nervous and I don't know how this is going to go and a million things are going to go wrong. And there's not a million things going to happen in this conversation anyway. So there's a story that we tell ourselves that is not true. So when we start seeing, I think life becomes much more simple. When we get to see that we are the person who is the driver's seat of our experience, then we get to see we're driving down a bumpy road in our car. We can guide ourselves through the potholes or the bits where it's bumpy. And then sometimes when we're in our thinking, we forget that we can guide ourselves and we just go over every single bump in the road. But before we know it, there will come a moment where life feels smooth again. And that's that ebbing and flowing, the in and out of experience. Where we begin to see that we're being enough, oh, I forgot. Being enough, oh, I forgot. Being enough, being enough. I am enough, I forgot, I am enough. So I love when Cecilia pointed at the beginning, because I had a perfection. Everything had to be perfect. I had to do something 100%. And that's exhausting. We're not designed to live in 100% of anything. And I think if we're living in 100%, then there's nothing more there to learn. It's like you have a glass full of water and it's completely full. You can't pour anything else in there. So it's always really nice to leave a space of not knowing, of just showing up in a place of not knowing, as if we've never heard anything before. Because the person who begins to listen is you. The person who begins to perhaps hear things like never before is you. And you forget your name and you forget who you are and you just sit in the feeling of all that is good. Which Cecilia mentioned the name wisdom. and wisdom being the purity of thought before the contamination of the human experience, as expressed by Sydney Banks. You are wisdom.
Yeah, and when we talk about wisdom, I can see that wisdom, I can feel wisdom in a lot of things that happen in my life. It's not only the good thoughts or the bad thoughts. It's wisdom in every kind of emotions that comes through me, and it wants to tell me something. And when I listen, I can feel that it's more simplicity. A life maybe not feel simple, but there is a simplicity to know that wisdom is guiding me and telling me how to move on or move through all the emotions I've got. Because I'm not going to sit here and say that my life is happy all the time, because I can't talk like that, because I can see that moods go always up and down, and I can feel all kinds of feelings and emotions. But if I know that there is a wisdom in that, and I can understand that if I'm hurting in some way, or my mood goes down and get low, I can navigate in that and know that I had a thinking that wasn't so nice just now, and that makes life more simple, because I can step away a little from all my stories that I make up all the time, and it makes life more joyful. Like I see with my grandchild, when we are playing, that she don't have all these stories all the time. She show up and start to play, and are not caught up in all this explaining about everything, why I feel this way and blah blah blah. So she's not holding on to all the emotions like I can do sometimes. So when I feel that my mood is low, it's better to leave it, so I can feel the joy coming later on. It's really a difference between low mood and high mood, and you see outside with those glasses, you really feel differently how your mood is.
So I'm just wondering if we can throw it open if anyone has any comments or maybe any questions that they would like to ask on what we've been saying so far. How are people doing? So you can, at the bottom bar, there is the reaction. And if you click that, there is a part where you can raise your hand. If you press that, and then it will show up, and then we can ask you to, or if you want to type something, not everyone wishes to. At this point, we can have a look at, and we can read it out for you, however is comfortable for you.
Yeah, Michaela.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you. Yeah,
Nice to
and
see you.
Nice to meet you, Steve.
And you.
It was just something that popped up when you were talking about defining. And I don't usually do this, but I did this time because lately I've been into looking to the nature of the words that we use. So I looked at the definition and, there's a number of ways that it might be described, but one that I found that we often use is in relation to ourselves is determining or to fix the boundaries or the extent of. And the definite, so I thought it was ironic that if you want to look to a definition of who we are, what we are, it is infinite. There is no boundaries. There is nothing fixed. So I just thought that was ironic.
Yeah.
I wanted to share that.
It's beautiful. That brings to mind a time when I was in Canada and I was really in a lot of thinking. And we'd gone down to sit by the ocean and we took a picnic and there was the driftwood right by the beach and we just sat around there and we had our feet in the water. And I mentioned there being in the flowing, and then I just noticed that my breathing instinctively went, without me even having to think, instinctively went with the flow of this in and out of the seas. And then it just really hit me, and I says to Tony, I says, isn't it interesting that all those, I don't know how many miles away, but that these oceans know how to ebb and flow. And he says, well, yes, it's the moon that does that, isn't it? And I said, yeah, I know that. But have you ever seen a piece of string or a rope pulling the oceans? It's like there's this invisible, infinite energy that's guiding everything. And we can witness it when we see nature in its beauty. And the part that was in that moment, witness it for me, was what we would say the divine nature within me, the true nature within us. So when you look towards the traditional teachings of Native people, which I always love, especially Native American people, it's like, and being in Canada, it's First Nations. And the First Nations people would have lived on that land and had ceremony on that land. And the more that I started actually looking into that, it just really pointed to that same understanding or feeling that you were saying there. That the nature of who we are is infinite. Whether the definition of who we think we are is temporary. Any thought that we have, whether it is classified as good or bad, is only aligned with the energy that we give it. And I loved seeing that because it meant that even happiness, I didn't have to hold on to happiness. I didn't have to, how do I get it back again? No, we're built with that same loving energy to be moment to moment. And if we know that it's a given in our experience of being human, that will be given to us, maybe in a different way, maybe in a slightly different feeling. But one of the things Cecilia and I were talking about this morning was like, so what really drives us to do things is like, we begin to the understanding of that infinite feeling. There seems to come a knowing with that we know to trust versus should I, can I, or maybe of the ego mind, of the intellect, of our habitual understandings. But when we're in that place of that feeling, even though our brain, our small brain might still be doing that, there is a feeling, there's a knowing that asks us just to trust. And we realize that life then is moment to moment, one step to the next. and at any moment we can stop. So when we had the conversation this morning, and I says to Cecilia, like, well, we don't have to go on. But that was never a question, even through all this, oh, this is my first time. And it's like, well, it kind of in the true nature of the principles of all we have is the moment, then this is my first time too. And if we just see that everything's the first time, and we don't have to bring, oh, I didn't do it good the last time, or I should have done it better. We can just say, okay, let's just see how I'm showing up today, right now, in this moment.
Yeah, welcome.
I wanted to share on that. It was something that I was in a call with Michael Neal this week, and we were discussing doing something that many of us, including me, have a lot of thinking about. And there was something, he was coaching someone through it, and something popped when he said this, and I actually put it on a sticky. Can you do it uncomfortably, awkwardly, and badly? And actually my mind popped to something else that I've been wanting to do, and I keep putting up all of these ideas of how it should be done, and oh, I'm not qualified, and I don't know how to do it, and I need to learn how, and who can teach me how, and who can with me, and all of that. And as soon as I heard him ask this person that, it's just like, oh my gosh, I can do anything like that. And here's this thing, I had a good giggle over it, because it's like, I know that it's not going to be as uncomfortable, awkward, or bad as I imagine it to be. That just coming from this, like, what wants to come out and how does it want to come out? And Cecilia talking about, like, you, like, I came to hear you and Steve, not a you and a Steve that you might think you need to be. And isn't that what we're always looking for from each other, is to really know the other? And the only way is to just show up, even if it's uncomfortable, awkward, and bad for a moment. It won't be for long. And talking about that, there's always a first time. Anyway, this is spurring all kinds of good thinking, interesting thinking, evolving. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, something came up here now, and that's also without all the stories how we want it to be perfect or not perfect. I feel that what I want is to support with my heart. It's what I feel. It's the thing that I can see, to just be here for someone that that needs it, and sometimes it can be me. A space where someone can feel that I can allow myself to just be here together, or if I want, I share something, but a space there someone can listen and be here for me. It's what I needed, and and what I need sometimes when I'm not feeling so well. And I want that space to be a space that I'm not hearing that I'm broken or something. It's just a safe space that I can share how I feel, but not not that I have to do anything about it. Just share.
Does anyone else have anything carrying that word share? Does anybody else want to share?
Yeah,
Hi.
I just thank you. I don't know. This is going to be totally imperfect share.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I was feeling tired and a little uncomfortable about something, and just feels easier allowing it. Yeah. Hmm. Not so much else to say, but yeah.
We are here, Maya. We are here. We see you. And we love you.
Love you too.
And you know, I also think what is beautiful about what you shared, Maya, is that it tells me that you love you too.
Mm.
To just press that button just to share. And sometimes that's all it's needed, just to have a space where we can go, blah, 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 blah. Oh, is that really what I was thinking? And it's just enough for us just to see. It's like we just pop the balloon of our thinking, and it's sometimes just too busy going, pop, this balloon gets bigger and bigger, and all we see is the balloon in front of us. But as soon as it's popped, it's gone. And that's what I hear from you. That's what I feel from you when you shared that. It's like so thank you for sharing.
Mm. Thank you, Maya.
Anyone else get anything? Any comments or any questions?
So nice to make space for ourselves to just go out in a room like this and just be together. That's self-care.
Yeah, and I think in those moments we get to see that all we really have is ourselves.
Mm.
We are the thinker of every experience. All other experiences, all other people, it's our thinking about those experiences and people. And once we see that, oh, okay, when I think about this person in that way, this is how I feel, that's how consciousness beautifully works. It will give us the feeling of our thinking. And the more that we see that, it actually gives us firsthand the opportunity to see ourselves in a different way. So rather than our thinking keeping us captured and overthinking, we get to pop that balloon by actually, no, this is me in this moment. And the beautiful thing about it is that when we leave it alone, it seems to just drift away. And then when we find ourselves drifting back to it again, it's like, oh, so I'm doing more thinking about it. It's not the same thinking because that's gone. And then we get to see, I'm doing this. I'm doing this again. Okay. So rather than it being, oh my goodness, I'm doing it again, it's like, I'm doing it again. Okay. So we get to be easier and kinder to ourselves. Being you is the most beautiful expression that you will ever have. I love when Cecilia said that bit, and I can't remember that word, but like showing up and being me, because I'm the only one that can do that. And you're the only you it can do you. No one can do you like you do you. And in that expression, being you, when we see beyond the struggle, it's just something that seems to happen every now and again. So it's not about actually getting into the pit and wrestling the lion and trying to kill the lion in order to get all your struggles away. It's actually seeing that innocently we create overthinking because we have defined an experience or a way that something should unfold. That is what keeps us stuck in the uncomfortable feelings of life. And if we see that our emotions are just thoughts, we don't have to get into, well, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling that. We don't have to get into the shopping list of expressions and emotion. It's thought. And thought is the most beautiful gift. And there is an art to living. There's an expression to living. And you are your own artist. You can create whatever you wish to create. And even in those moments where you've forgotten, then it's okay. Because the art of living is still living. And that's going back to, the perfection thing that we were saying right at the beginning. It's like when I realized, it's like, I don't have to, just because I thought that about myself or someone else, doesn't mean I have to continually think that way. My experience went from one of being blinkered to the longest arms of expression that I could possibly find in a split second. And what I love about this, when you're listening to anyone speaking about the beauty of life, you will realize that you're hearing, not using these. Our ears are wonderful. Our eyes are wonderful. Our senses are wonderful. They all give us information. But that's all. They give us information. But they are lit up. They are alive because of the wisdom inside of us or flowing through us. I mean, inside of us is a metaphor of a way of pointing inside. We're really pointing everywhere because we see that there is wisdom in every design. There is a wisdom in your system of who you are. And it's never given up on you. And it never will give up on you. And even when it comes to the moment where we drop this form, even more wisdom in action. So being you, we see it through children a lot more easy and naturally, but we still have that same childlike expression inside of us. We still have that same fun feelings inside of us. And when we start looking in the direction of the feelings that give us good feelings, we forget that we were struggling maybe 10 minutes ago, or we forget that we were overthinking. And then that allows us just to see that we're in and out of experience. It's the most natural thing to do. We're just in and out. We're not defining. We're not holding, we're just being.
And that I am the only one who knows when I know. I just know when it's right. If I listen to my heart and my feeling, the deep feeling, I just know when I know. It's so clear when it comes to the knowing. When you deeply know, no one else can tell you. When you deeply know how you know. And before that, there's a little struggle.
I don't know if you found this, Cecilia, or anybody else, but the more that I understand the nature of who I really am, the less I spend time in the struggle. Some moments I do, sometimes I'm in it before I know it. And then it's like, okay, so I was just being extra human in that moment. And it's seeing, like a lot of the things that I did before, it was do these steps and then you'll never feel this. But I think as part of our human experience, sometimes we are designed to experience all of life. And it's the not allowing ourselves to experience it. And I don't mean that we have to deep dive into every experience that we've got. But what I mean is like sometimes when something happens in life which is sad, sometimes just being that for a moment, allowing yourself to detach that. It's almost like I notice when the experience is happening in my world, rather than me kind of being like the big boulder it's thrown into the pond, I kind of just skim. So I'm still feeling the emotion, but it doesn't have me. And that's the difference. I can feel any emotion, any thought, and more do I feel that it has, less and less do I feel that it has me. And that's where I really know where I'm navigating life from. But I'm not holding myself as in, check me, I never get sad, or I do have moments too. And I think when we see that that's the experience, when I was speaking to Cecilia this morning, and for some reason it came into my flow of thinking that when I remember I was given my first wage packet when I started work for the first time, and my mum and daddy says, well, since it's, you can take that. And I've been saving up some money. It's when stereo stack systems came out, so where you had like your vinyl on top and it was all cased in this beautiful wooden box thing, and then you had your double cassette player inside there. Then you had a bit where you put your vinyls in, and then you had the equalizer things that you could put the sound, and it's like what I was seeing in that moment of sharing that with Cecilia. It's like that's us in life. We have bits where we're moving to how life is actually feeling okay for us, and once we find that perfect sound, feeling, vibration, we know what we want from life. We're more in tune to what we want to play and what we want to do. And knowing though that when you put a cassette in, it sounds different from a vinyl. So it's not that you keep yourself, no, it's going to be like this. Life will be different each moment. But you have that equalizer to move things to feel right for you. But normally with that, once you find, and it's like, no, this is how I wish to hear. This is what feels right for me in the moment. And that's very different from feeling there's no control. You are guided by an infinite wisdom. You are that infinite wisdom. So you don't have to learn how to be it. You are that infinite wisdom. So when I was saying about people going on holiday at the beginning and being there a couple of days, oh, I love this place, I'm so relaxed here. It's just that they've dropped their thinking. It's not the place. It's just that their thinking has dropped and the natural ease of who they are has come forward. But it's always been there. And you will find that in different places in your life, wherever way you go. And if something is feeling off base, maybe you're taking your thinking a little bit too seriously in that moment. But it can be so helpful, and I didn't like this at the beginning, but it can be so helpful to know if something is off base in my life, it's my thinking about it. And it just means that you can take a step back, check in where you're at. And perhaps for those moments is what Cecilia had said earlier on, the level, like when we get into maybe a thought storm or get lost in our actual thinking, that's a good time not to take ourselves seriously. It's never a good time to make a decision. But just like, you know, when you have a beach ball, you blow it up and then you push it into the water and you push it in. What happens when you let the beach ball go? It pops immediately up. That's our well-being. Overthinking pushes it down, pushes it down, pushes it down. And then before we know it, it's sprung up. So this is as an action. Every single one of us. We're all human. We're all learning through these beautiful 3 principles. But the person who gets to know then the best for you is you. So I'm just aware of our time now. And is there any last comments or any questions before we bring this conversation to?
I just want to correct your name, Steve. I was talking to Ylva yesterday. Ylva is on here too. She said your name is Adair, and I always say Adar.
Yeah, Adair, yeah.
I'm sorry for that. I'm not
called...
perfect, you see. I'm the new. I'm the new non-perfect.
Yeah.
But now I correct it. Steve Adair.
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 You know, I think like when you start speaking with people around the world, there's that old thing where you say tomato, I'll say tomato, and it's kind of, you know, it doesn't bother me too much that someone kind of.
But I did know it, but then I had a little bit nervous thinking in the beginning, and then I forgot. But now when I everything settled, it comes to me. Oh my God, I said wrong name. And that's how we function.
We're much more kinder to ourselves when we settle. So there's no more hands or anything going up. So I think we begin to bring this.
Yeah. And I want to thank you everyone for being together with us.
Yeah.
And my first webinar together with Steve. Thank you so much, Steve, for that.
Thank you. Thank you for staying with it and actually coming forward and doing it, because it's, I think it was Michaela had said at the beginning, it's like the thinking of doing something is always worse than the actual doing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you everyone for coming and bringing your loving and just being in that open space, because that brings the consciousness of who we are more beautiful to the forefront. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy.
And this is recording and out on Facebook. So yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye. Bye.
Bye.